everyone. My name is Abhishek, and today we are doing a quick analysis of the second day of the CET 2022, the Maharashtra CET 2022. This will act as a dual session where we will try and recap a little bit of what was there in the morning slot, and we will capture whatever was seen in the afternoon slot. So it will not just be for those who have not attended, for those who have not attended the morning session. So it's perfectly fine if you haven't seen the morning slot analysis. We just do them both together, right? Okay. So the first thing that we want to talk about is the pattern, which was similar to that of the last year, where you had one question, which is 1 question, 1 mark, which is the usual, 200 questions, 150 minutes, no negative marking, as we all know. And just like last time, we had a jumbled paper. So for those who were thinking that, okay, 50 for verbal, 50 for quant, and I'll adjust my time accordingly, those people would have had to make some changes in their strategy, right? So that's probably the only, I don't want to say new, but as compared to last year, it's the same format, right? Let's go on to the overview of the section. So this is the morning slot distribution of questions. So if you notice, there is a good chunk of questions in the logical reasoning section. So for the past couple of years, it had stabilized at somewhere around 75. But this time around, there were close to 85 questions in the logical reasoning section. Now, when we say logical reasoning, we are including verbal reasoning and the analytical reasoning part of it, which is your non-verbal reasoning. Quantitative aptitude was similar, around 50, 55 as usual. Verbal was flatlining at 50. And this time around, there were quite a fewer number of abstract reasoning questions, which normally had stabilized to around 25. This time around, there were just 10, maybe a maximum of 15 questions. As for the morning session, what we noticed was, in fact, across both the sessions today, the difficulty level was a tad higher than that it was on day one. So the numbers that were there on day one would not likely reflect in D2. And the ideal attempts should have been in both cases close to 150. And with probably around 80, 90% of accuracy or something like that. 80% should be a good score. And if you look at the first slot, the easy section was abstract reasoning, which normally a lot of kids fear, but it's not really that for this first slot. The rest of them were easy to moderate. There wasn't anything exceptionally difficult. Maybe a stray question here and there would have been time consuming. But apart from that, nothing really painfully difficult across the board, or half the section was difficult. Nothing of those lines in terms of extremes. Now compare that with the afternoon section, and you see that the distribution of questions in quantitative ability, which is your math section, and your LR is similar broadly. So quant had close to around 69 questions, and your LR also had 69 questions. And VA had 49. So this was a rough distribution. So that's why we wrote 70. Excuse me, there's a little bit of a disturbance over here. So please bear with me. So QA and LR were close to 70 questions. VA was close to 50 questions. And like we said, abstract reasoning bottomed at 13. So the maximum questions we saw were for abstract reasoning only 13, which is in this slot. So we know that for some reason, the shift is not visible or anything. There's just way less data to comment on things like that. But yes, abstract reasoning questions were noticeably fewer in today's slots. So that's your distribution. The easy section, again, continued to be verbal for the most part. Again, for the abstract reasoning questions, there were a couple of questions here and there that were slightly time consuming, but like I said, nothing extreme along the lines of, let's say, half the section was difficult or something like that. Broadly, everything was easy to moderate, and we will end up with roughly the same attempts of close to 150 plus. Right? So that is the overall distribution. Let's jump in now to each of the different sections, starting with the QADI section. Right? There's a quick comparison. The numbers might vary 1 or 2 questions here and there, but not too much, don't worry. If you look at numbers as a chapter, that chapter alone, and of course by numbers we add things like HCF, LCM, last digit, or how many zeros are there, things like that. All of those questions put together were 8 to 10 in the morning section. But notice the massive jump. We had close to 26 questions. So factors, we had a lot of, we had to find, there were some co-prime and prime, and there were things like the HCF of certain numbers is so and so, the larger number is this much, what's the difference between the two, blah, 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 all those things. So that's a huge number of questions for numbers, which is a strange skew, but fine, we can deal with them. But like I said, lucky for us, these questions were fairly conceptual driven. So you all know how to find the number of zeros and things like that. So everything was pretty much crackable. Arithmetic, which includes all of your things like ratio, proportion, time, speed, distance, time and work, a little bit of, what am I missing here? Yeah, so we had allegation, mixture, ratio, proportion, all of those things. Those are close to 16 questions. So if you notice, the set off of the numbers went in your arithmetic. So arithmetic had fewer questions in the afternoon section as compared to the morning section, which had 20 to 25 questions. Surprisingly, data sufficiency was absent in the afternoon section, and there were 6 to 7 questions in the morning section. So we see a nice little skew happening, but again, on the overall scale, that's not really going to hamper our targets and all too much, right? Geometry, again, noticeably fewer questions. There was just one question of geometry where you had to find out, I think, the distance that was there based on some rhombus sort of figure and all of those things. So that was broadly that in the afternoon section. Geometry, again, easy, medium, we would call it, only that set of questions, but nothing really problematic. PNC, roughly the same, 6 in the morning and 8 in the afternoon. Data interpretation was noticeably absent, just as data sufficiency was absent in the afternoon section. Data interpretation was absent in the morning section, but there are close to 18 questions, which was, I think, spread across, if my notes are correct, 4 caselets in your DI section in the afternoon section. These had varying numbers of questions. Like some had 4, one had 6 questions, one had 5. So overall, we had close to 18 questions in data interpretation. That brings us to a grand total of 70 in your afternoon section and close to 50 in your morning section. So as you see, the bigger jump has been in terms of the footage given to the numbers chapter. Right? Moving on to logical reasoning. Now, in logical reasoning, if we count all of the chapters of non-verbal reasoning, which are all of your coding, decoding, all your LR caselets, if you look at blood relations, number series, blah, 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 all of those things together were 80 questions. So like we said, LR section had a greater weightage in the morning session, and in the afternoon section, it had a slightly lower weightage. So that is visible in the non-verbal reasoning part, where in the morning section, we had 80 odd questions, and in the afternoon section, we had 62 odd questions. And the slight change was the verbal reasoning part, where in the morning case, we had course of action and syllogs, which were a grand total of 3 questions. But in the afternoon section, we had this strange question of arrange let's say, arrange the things in a sequence. Now we can talk about the questions, but then there was arrange logically some 4 or 5 things. There was one question on reverse syllogs, which is, say, for example, the conclusion or something will be given, and then which of the 2 statements can be used to infer the given conclusion or something like that. So all of those things together gave us 8 questions. There were 3 questions on critical reasoning, right? So distributing the non-verbal part gave us all of these interesting things. Now you will obviously notice that the numbers will be higher for the morning side, of course, because like we said many times before, the morning section had more questions on the in the LR section. So the caselets were a little bit lower in the afternoon, which was 34 questions, like I said, and you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 caselets in all, which account for those 34 questions. The similar roughly distribution, 8 odd caselets in the morning section, giving us 44 questions. Right? Just a second. I want to try and see if we can take some questions. But what I think I will end up doing is I'll probably finish off the entire question distribution and all those things, and then we'll try and take some questions, right? Sequential output, 5 questions in the morning section, nothing in the afternoon. Similar for calendars and clocks, again absent. Symbols and cube-based questions, so a, dollar, blah, blah, all those questions, cube-based questions and all, again absent in the morning, in the afternoon section, but 10 questions in the morning section. So that would mean that you had to keep your eyes open for the morning section if there's a good number of questions coming from this, so you had to process faster, right? The big change would be number series as compared to the morning and afternoon, where we had 13 questions. Now, when we say number series, it's going to include the find the next number, find the middle number, find the previous number, find the odd term out. All of those things are included. So I'm not going to again distribute, okay, from these how many odd one questions were there, from these how many series questions were there. But all of those together was as a subtopic 13 questions in the afternoon section as compared to 5 in the morning section. So there we see that we are sort of trying to cover up the deficit of the overall non-verbal reasoning through the numbers. Sorry, the number series, right? Abstract reasoning, like we said, it's a big reduction in the number of questions as compared to last year. So only 2 chapters, the series questions came where you had to find the next one or the middle one or something like that. In the afternoon section, there was something interesting where we had, I think, close to 9 figures in some of the series questions, where we had to find, let's say, the 6th figure or the 7th figure or something like that. So that ended up taking a little bit of time. So you had to understand that, okay, in a series of 4, probably you could have found out the 5th one or the middle one or something. But in a set of 9, that's going to take a little longer. So you have to be a little bit careful over there. Again, odd image out, odd one out, for example, was just 6 questions as compared to 3, 4 in the morning. Something that has not been seen in both sections today is your analogy question. So sometimes you had these 2 pairs that you had to find the relationship between, and then accordingly, what is the next one? It's a variant of the series question, but still, we didn't see a proper abstract reasoning analogy question in both the slots of day 2. So that's just something worth noting. Moving on to the verbal ability and reading comprehension section. If you look at the number of questions in your RC section, fairly similar. The morning slot had 21 and the afternoon slot had 18 questions. It's just that in the morning slot, we had more number of passages. So there were 3, 4 questions in each passage, and that added up to a grand total of 6 passages for these 21 questions. So it might have felt that you had to read a lot more, and the length of the passages were close to, let's say, 400 to 450 to 550, maybe 600 words maximum. Which meant that you ended up reading a little bit more for those who are accustomed to the reading first approach. But still, because it is CET, they are fairly crackable, I would say. But in the afternoon section, there were 3 passages, and these were not questions that were quite as easy. There was some complexity in the topic in 2 of those, and in the one where there wasn't any complexity in the topic, the questions ended up taking a little bit more time. But like I said, on the whole, it's a pretty manageable section. So if you went through and you had fairly good retention ability, so 3 passages is something that we can really take on. So probably 5, 6 questions across each RC. Moving on to vocab and grammar, again, fairly similar in terms of your numbers of questions, 29 and 32. So verbal is the only section, and probably to some extent abstract reasoning are the only 2 sections that have stayed fairly consistent across both slots of today, which is day 2. There was some big change at 10 plus, 10 minus and all that in your QA and your LR section. But like we said, on the whole, because we don't have to worry about things like sectional cutoffs and all that, the paper sort of balances itself. So no one needs to really worry about it, right? Coming to the distribution of questions in the VARC section, spellings, we had close to 5 questions in the morning slot, nothing, absolutely nothing in the afternoon section, in the afternoon session. Synonyms, antonyms, similar 5 and 7, morning and afternoon respectively. Analogies, similar again, 2 and 3. And these, for those who are a little bit worried about vocabulary, these were all fairly easy questions. There were the synonym question in the afternoon section had some idioms that were, I would say, tricky. But like I said, for 2 questions, overall from the 10, fairly crackable, 7 at least, I would say. So for those who are panicking about vocab, if you notice, the afternoon section had fairly manageable number of questions from these 10. Closed test, 1 passage of 4 questions, absolutely missing in the afternoon section. Opposite gender questions, again missing in the afternoon section. Odd one out, fewer number of questions in the afternoon section. Out of context, so your odd sentence, so to speak. That was a big surprise in the morning section with 5 questions coming there. And those who had any inputs, before getting into the afternoon session would have been a little bit worried. But then when you looked at the paper, you saw there was nothing really related in terms of odd sentence. So you could have, saved yourself a little bit of headache over there, right? Moving to what was seen in the afternoon section, if most of them are absent. So what was there indeed? So we had lots of fill in the blanks with 2 blankers mostly, and 1 question of a single blank. Replace the underlying phrase. So this is your typical grammar question that was driven by things like tense rules and subject-verb agreement, the usual suspects and things like that. So all of those were there. There were parajumbles present in this year's afternoon session, today's afternoon session, sorry. But unlike what used to come in the CET, which had something like a caselet style parajumble. So if you remember the past couple of years, there was this one question type where you had 5-6 sentences and it had 5 questions in that one set of parajumble, where question 1 was identify the 3rd sentence, then second question was identify the 4th sentence, the last sentence, which of these will fit after the 4th sentence, things like that. So it had one parajumble with a set of 5 questions, what we call a caselet type parajumble, which was not seen in the afternoon slot of day 2. And we had the standard MCQ, which is found in other entrance exams like your NMAT, SNAP, etc., where fortunately for us, we also had only 4 sentences to rearrange. So again, fairly crackable. If you know basics of parajumbles, these were manageable. So that is something new that has happened in the afternoon session as compared to the morning one. Completion is your one short paragraph given, 1 line in the middle missing. Again, a manageable 1 question over there. Reading comprehension, broadly similar, but like I said, more passages in the morning session. So that is the distribution when it comes, the GAN when it comes to the distribution of questions and all that. A couple of pointers that I wanted to highlight. Of course, we're not going to talk about what did you do for this question, that question, etc. But there were 4 to 5 questions in the afternoon session at least that had some errors in there. So I distinctly remember one case where we had been asked to find the percentage change, but in the options there was, I think, the absolute difference that was mentioned in one of the sets. So that's one thing that struck me immediately. There was a problem in the series question, and this one blanker, fill in the blank, had a problem. A couple of questions in the RCs were a little bit ambiguous. They were not truly supported by the data in the passage. There were lots of typing mistakes, etc. For example, instead of, cram, they had written dream or something like that. Instead of resend, they had written resent or something like that. These are all just examples. Again, I'm not quoting the passages directly, but there were these sorts of, I would say, irritants in the passages and in the questions, where you spend all this effort and study hard and on, and you see that, okay, boss, am I misreading the question? Am I misreading the information? Then you realize that, oh, okay, boss, fine, there's probably some problem. So that was a little bit of a shocker because in the morning session, at least, no errors were reported. I think similar case was there, probably 1 error or something in the both the slots of day 1. So this was a bit surprising to see that there were 4 to 5 questions that had some errors in there. But there we go. I mean, human error. Sometimes things happen. So yeah, that's really all I had to add on the matter. Of course, we're not discussing questions. Let me just take a quick look and see what questions have come up so far, and we'll try and take them, and then we'll see what next. Right? Just a second. So a common question that has come up is that what happens tomorrow? See, obviously, we don't want to comment on what to expect tomorrow because anything can turn up, right? So just because both slots of today had a slightly more difficult paper than both slots of the first day, that has no bearing on what you can get tomorrow, right? So for those who are anxious about what will happen tomorrow, my advice to you is just keep this information and then just do your own thing, right? What are the constants are that it's a jumbled paper, right? So that's not going anywhere. It's not like on day 3 you suddenly get a sectionally divided paper. So these things are constant. So you have to work on, trying to ensure that you're balancing your time accordingly. The usual things like not waste too much time on certain caselets or too much time on, let's say, a question in quant, for example, or verbal RC passages or something, RCs or something where the data is too much and things like that. So don't waste time on all those things. Plan your attempts accordingly. So say, for example, for every half an hour of time that you have, because there are 5 slabs of half an hour, 2.5 hours, make sure that you're somewhere close to the 40 question mark, I would say, in terms of the attempts that you've read so far. But that's probably about it. So I would say be prepared for anything, right? All of these topics, all of you have studied. So it's not like a totally new topic has come which has not been taught. For example, randomly, they're not throwing in things like trigonometry and integration and things like that in your math section, right? So it's not that you have to panic about something new turning, right? But from the topics you have studied, what will come, what will not come, things like how many questions will be distributed across those topics, etc., is something that you just have to, see on the fly, right? So for those who are waiting to take the exam tomorrow, don't bother too much about what will happen if DS comes more and DI does not come. What will this? What will that? There are plenty of things that you can just wonder about and rack your brains on for no reason. So all that is recommended is plan your exam, right? Get a good night's rest, eat well, be prepared, and just take it calmly on the day, right? The common advice that all of you might have been given is that you might know everything, but the real difference is what is your mindset on the day, right? So that can be the difference between a 98 and a 99. So please make sure that you're taking all of this information with a pinch of salt, and let's see if something in terms of proportion and all changes. Of course, we'll have another session on P3 analysis and probably some sort of consolidated analysis coming up soon, right? So I hope that answers the question of what to expect tomorrow. You're not going to get something totally random. Something in terms of proportions will just change. That's about it, right? So that's about it. Just a second. Let me just scan the questions. Okay. Normalization may or may not. So like I said, I'm not really sure what is going to happen tomorrow. So if the visible difficulty has been seen from day 1 both slots to day 2 both slots, there will be some normalization. But again, what factor of normalization, this, that, and all. Let's not get into the mechanics of it. You just take the paper in front of you, attempt the question in front of you. That's probably about it, right? That's about it. I don't see too many questions coming up. In case there are questions, please shoot them. There is a bit of lag on my end when it comes to the YouTube chat. So that's about it, I would think. Are there any questions as it comes to or pertains to all of this stuff that we discussed today? How do they normalize it? Not really something you want to get into. It's a painful thought. Leave it. Let's just focus on what is the paper in front of us, and then just give it our best. Take the best shot. Sorry. Right. So Gaurav, this is more of a topic-specific question. I would rather answer that separately, or you find a mentor who can answer that. But this is more of a topic-specific question. I don't really want to take this together. Yes, sorry. One thing I forgot. In the afternoon section, at least, because that's the one I took. I just finished the paper and took this YouTube session. In the afternoon section, the DI case studies, some of them had all the questions clubbed, and some of them had the questions distributed. So there was one rather painful DI case study where I saw one question and I was like, okay, fine, that's probably one question. Then 15 questions later, I had another one. And then in the span of a gap of 2-3 questions, I had again a couple of questions here and there. So there are totally 4 questions, but then I didn't know that they were going to turn up later. So it's just a quirk of this slot. So there was some distributed questions. So be prepared, you might have to end up remembering some of the stuff, but don't worry, the data will be given to you. All right, obviously for every DI case, right, the data will be there on the left. So you needn't worry that, okay, I still have to go back and find the data. That's not going to happen. But yeah, I mean, there were distributed questions. Oddly enough, that happened even in one of the RCs. So I had 4 questions in a row in my paper, and then one question of that RC came way ahead somewhere, and that was just a quirk that happened today. Yeah, okay. As regards the interface, the questions related, if they are all part of a set, say for example, you have a DI table and you have 4 questions related to it on the left hand side. So you'll see that all of those questions are numbered on the left. So I would recommend that you don't click the number to go to the next question. Always click on save and next, or rather in this case, next. So if you just click on, let's say, from 166 to 169, there are, let's say, 4 questions in the DI set. You click on 166, or rather you reach 166, you mark, let's say, an option C. And you click on 167, the answer may not be recorded. So I don't want any of you guys to take that chance. Always click on the button, the next button at the bottom. Don't click on the hyperlinks of the questions. That's something that is worth remembering. That's probably the new part in today's this. Yeah, I mean, that's about it. When can we expect the results? Hey, your guess is as good as mine. Look, we really don't know. We'll just wait and watch when the announcement comes up. We'll find out. We are waiting just as much as you are. Definitely not tomorrow. That's all I can say about that. So let tomorrow's paper happen. Then probably a month or so, if they want to release it sooner and get on with the process, they might release it sooner. But again, these things have been known to take their own time. So let's not think about the results right now. At least take your paper, guys. Come on, don't focus on the results right now. Just give it your best shot, right? That's probably it. Strategy wise, see, Yash, because it's a jumbled paper, you don't even know where your puzzle is situated. And like I said, the questions are coming a little bit staggered. So you'll never know if in your LR set, for some unfortunate reason, 2 questions come up and then one question comes 10 questions later, another question comes 7 questions later. So I don't really want you guys to take that chance. So if it's there, just finish it off, right? If you don't want to solve the case, that's a different question. Then you just randomly mark what you would normally do, right? So take a look at the information, see if it's something worth attempting, just finish it off right there. Believe me, in a CET, you will not have the time to come back and solve the case. Even if you, even if you do mark for review, there's no time. So let's not get into that, right? That is about it. Probably, yeah, right. Fine. It doesn't feel like there are any more questions. I'll wait for another minute and just see if there are any more questions. Genuine attempts. So, like we said, genuine attempts, good attempts in our understanding was 150 odd in both the slots on an average for day 2, with probably about 85-ish something accuracy, 85-90 accuracy. I'm sorry, there's a little bit of noise, so please try and adjust with that. I should have checked beforehand whether there's an audio or video issue, but it's already done. So, oops. So genuine attempts, like we said, close to 150 odd. Right. Okay, fine. It seems we've reached the end of the sessions. Sorry, that's about it. And yeah, all right. So we'll just wait for the day 3 and the consolidated analysis sessions. Those will come up on our channel. As usual, as all YouTube streams end, like, share, subscribe kare. That's the final word of advice. For those who are waiting on slot 3, all the best. For those who are done with, slot 3, day 3. For those who are waiting on, are already done with day 1 and 2, chill. There's nothing you can do about it. All you need to do is relax, right? And we'll see how it goes. Then we'll talk about what colleges to apply to and expected cutoffs and things like that. We'll discuss too. Right? That's it. Right. Thank you so much.